is Patricia.
Oh my goodness, how long has it been since we did one of these?
It's been almost a year to the day since we've done an episode of DreamMachine because we talked about The Bad Guys when it first came out, and then a few months later Puss in Boots came out, but I haven't had the chance to watch this movie until just recently.
Yeah, and funnily enough, we can definitely say, from the get-go, this doesn't suffer from the Pixar curse. Because this is the second movie that DreamWorks brought out in the same year as The Bad Guys.
Yes.
So but let's go straight into it and see what we think of it. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Here we go.
So everyone's favourite egg-loving, swashbuckling, fear-defying feline returns. For the first time in more than a decade, DreamWorks Animation presents a new adventure in the Shrek universe as a daring outlaw Puss in Boots discovers that his passion for peril and disregard for safety has been taking their toll. Puss has burned through 8 of his 9 lives, though the cost he lost count during the way. Getting those lives back will send Puss in Boots on his grandest quest yet. Academy Award nominee Antonio Banderas returns as the voice of the notorious Puss in Boots as he embarks on an epic journey into the Black Forest to find the mythical wishing star and restore his lost lives. So, right off the bat, I think when I first heard, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and given the fact that I think maybe we should probably focus on maybe the first movie just for a tiny amount of bit, because I gotta be honest with you, I can't, without you prompting me on certain things on the first Puss in Boots movie, I can't remember a lot about it. I remember Humpty Dumpty. I remember,
Jack and Jill.
Yeah, Jack and Jill, and again, you had to remind me of that. But in regards to everything else, I got to be honest. The first serving of Puss in Boots was not a very memorable one, if I remember. I remember correctly as well.
Yeah, it was basically just like Puss and Humpty trying to get the golden goose's 3 golden eggs, and they all had their reasons on why they wanted to do it. We know that Puss wanted to basically make his mother proud, and he wanted to make the town that he was from proud as well. And then Humpty basically was just trying to get all power, and there's a bit of a connection between Puss and Humpty. But yeah, the villains with Jack and Jill were kind of forgettable, and the whole story was just kind of So yeah, we weren't too crazy about the first Puss in Boots movie, because even though that Puss in Boots, the character, we loved him from the Shrek films, but unfortunately his first outing just wasn't as memorable as some of the stuff that we had seen with Shrek, whether it be the first 2 movies or here's the thing, we have not seen the Puss in Boots animated series on Netflix, so we cannot compare it between that and all the other adventures that he had been through.
But again, every rule that we say about a movie, you shouldn't have to look at any particular material in order to enjoy the movie for what it is.
Exactly, yeah. So we're only comparing this from what we know about from Puss from the Shrek movies, and then there's also Puss from the first movie. So this is what we were going right into when we saw the sequel, and we were blown away by the moment that we saw the trailer. When we saw the trailer, it looked so amazing. The way that the animation style, once again, kudos to a lot of the people who worked on Spider-Verse, who were able to give the animation style to Puss in Boots for basically putting this whole new experience into the screen that we've never seen from a DreamWorks film, at least until we talked about The Bad Guys, which we also mentioned before that a person who did work on Spider-Verse also worked on that movie as well. So yeah, I think that we can definitely tell that the people who worked on the first movie was nowhere near the second movie. They brought in new writers, they brought in a new director, and of course they brought in a new animation director who again worked on both The Bad Guys and on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And yeah, the experience of seeing this, when looking at the trailer, we knew that it was going to be something that we've never seen for Puss in Boots, the way that it's stylized and colorful. And then when we saw the trailer and what the story was going to be about, we were like, we need to pay more attention to this.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, let's go with the opening of the movie. I mean, right off the bat, I mean, like, it's, it's what you expect Puss in Boots to be. It's an action sequence. It's, it's cheering, it's music, it's, it's this whole fight scene that comes together. And also, they really up the ante on this. There's times where I thought I was playing Bulletstorm at one point. Like, it was so crazy. Like, like the monster that comes out and that's, Puss in Boots has to defeat, and, all the people around, like, cheering for him, everything like that. And so you get to this whole climatic, and then basically what we get is basically what happened to the antagonist of Coco. A bell falls on him. So he wakes up at the hospital, and he finds that he's basically been fixed up, and but there's a problem though. He's used number 8 of his 9 lives, and he then goes through like a montage, like all the lives that he's lost over the time.
Yeah, so, it went from everything from like suffering from a major allergic reaction to falling from a really tall building all the way down, saying, "Oh yeah, I can land on my feet. Cats are great with that." All the bad guys that he was able to fight, and of course recently with the bell. So he had lost 8 of his 9 lives, and the doctor warned him that he only has 1 life left, and for him to basically just retire as Puss in Boots. And he actually does it. He actually
not instantly, like, he laughs it off for the first time, but then he meets what, by the way, we're going to have a debate about this character that we're going to meet next, and so Puss in Boots is met in a bar with somebody, a wolf with big, massive red eyes, and he doesn't really identify himself straight away, but sooner or later, as the fur starts to stand on his neck, as he starts to really become, for the first time in his whole entire life, actually afraid of something. He meets death.
Yes. This wolf comes in with this shady jacket and hat and 2 scythes, and basically like looks at Puss in Boots as saying like, "Okay, I finally found you," and he even has a wanted poster of Puss in Boots, and it says, dead or alive, and he's pointing at the dead. And so he fights Puss in Boots, and then he basically just like defeats him so easily, and Puss gets frightened and runs away, leaving his sword behind.
Yeah, and also, the death even urges him to pick up the sword, just like you're baiting him. It's like, yeah, keep taking me on, and that. So because Death's calling him out like on his confidence on that. And, there's a thing about this is that I think Death is a very interesting character. Like, he's not, taking on Puss in Boots because, like, he has some kind of, like, deranged vendetta against him, or, like, he's not some psychopath or anything like that. That's his job. He is the Grim Reaper. He brings souls to the Valley of the Dead. And so that's his whole thing. He's not doing it because he's trying to get revenge on Puss in Boots or anything like that. Or, like, I mean, he does state that he does hate the fact that cats have 9 lives, and so he does like have a hatred for that for obvious reasons, for obvious motivations. And
obviously,
that.
yeah.
But I mean, like he's sort of like I mean, you say that he's a villain. I remember you saying that in Arun and Patricia. I disagree. I think he's an anti-hero. I think because like mind you, we'll talk about why I think they could have done more for his character when we get to the end of the end of the movie, but I mean, like, I like the whole introduction of him. I like his whole whistling thing. I think that's a really cool, like, entrance for him to have. Like, it's just, and who knows? Maybe in a future, Puss in Boots movies, maybe hopefully we might see him again. Like,
we'll see.
I hope he comes back. He's a really cool character.
I do agree. I like the way that his look is so menacing, and from the looks of him, it's like this is somebody that you do not want to mess with. He just has that stare in his eyes. I mean, we already seen a wolf in the Shrek movies, but, it's played off as like, oh, here's a little Red Riding Hood wolf, and he's just dressed up like Granny, and he's just like a bit on the feminine side. But no, this wolf is terrifying.
The one thing I will question, though, is that why is he armed with sickles rather than a scythe? Like,
that's an interesting question. That usually that's true because a Grim Reaper traditionally has a scythe.
Yeah.
But sickles, I guess it will be like a smaller version of a scythe so that he can be more nimble and quick.
I mean, he could do the same thing with like like a 2-handed weapon. I would have thought like he probably use it like kind of like Donatello uses his his stick. So like, or whatever it's called, so, some TMNT fan's gonna, roast me for that. But I mean, so yeah, I mean, like behind you, the sickles, regard of that look pretty threatening. So like, he does a good job in that regard. So Puss in Boots for the first time loses a fight, and he gets so scared he runs off. And he, in the next scene, he's effectively decided to move away and move into this crazy cat lady house.
Yeah, I like to think in the alternative universe in Shrek Forever After that this was probably the point that Puss retires and then decides that he was going to be staying with Fiona and the ogres.
I don't know, but he stays with this great guy. He basically makes a friend who is pretending to be a cat.
Yeah, the reason why is because he's able to get free food and doesn't live under the bridge, and he wants to be able to, befriend everybody, but nobody wants to be around him, and he essentially wants to be a therapy dog where he makes people happy, and, everybody just ignores him. I mean, there's like tons of cats, and Mama Luna, who is the name of the person who owns the house with all these cats, she basically doesn't even like recognize him outside of just like all the other cats that are in the house. And Puss goes by the name of Pickles, and he's just like living off a normal life as a cat. I mean, he's just eating regular cat food. He's, using the giant litter box that all the cats are using. He takes naps, and he's basically living like this boring, mundane life, and this is what basically he's doing.
And somehow, despite that, he grows a giant beard.
Yeah, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, I guess they tried to play that that's one thing I'll say. Like, they tried to play that for laughs. It's like, no.
No, it didn't really work. I mean, he's a cat. Now, if they were to try to pull it off in a different angle, it's like, he gets more hairier or something like that, then that would make sense because it shows the passage of time. But no, he decided to get this beard.
Yeah. So, by the way, our dog character in this is called Perrito.
Yeah, Perrito, yeah.
Perrito. And so he basically ends up being kind of like the comical relief for Puss in Boots in all of this, because he just to be fair, he is quite, even though he can be quite annoying at times, he is funny.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like on the levels of Donkey from Shrek, but he's actually very lovable because he wants to make everybody happy. He wants to be a therapy dog. He wants to be able to go up to people and find out what their problem is. He doesn't really have a lot of trust in them at first because he's just been completely ignored, but then he develops his friendship with Puss right away, even though Puss wants nothing to do with him, but he can't get rid of him because he just so happens to be there. And then we have this scene in which Goldilocks and the three bears think that they found Puss in Boots at Mama Luna's house, and they're like talking about like we need to find the wishing star, and that's when Puss gets the idea of like trying to find the wishing star so that he can be able to wish for 9 more lives.
Yeah, so basically he digs up his old costume and basically returns to being Puss in Boots, but then realizes he doesn't have his sword. So
Perrito decides that he's going to give him a stick, so it makes a lot of sense because he's a dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, along the way, we actually meet up with Kitty Softpaws in the mixed up, and
which is kind of a surprise, really, when you think about it, because we hadn't, given the fact we got too far into this movie, like we pretty much got past the first act, and then all of a sudden we get introduced to Softpaws in the second act.
Yeah,
that was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Kitty Softpaws in the first movie where she
did, yeah, but the problem is that I think with me, the first movie was so meh that you weren't really expecting to kind of like see her. You thought, okay, they've wiped this so clean and we're just doing it again, and you didn't think you would see Kitty in this, but no, she's in this movie.
Yeah, and there was even a part in the movie where apparently they were going to get married, but Puss actually left Kitty Softpaws waiting down the aisle, or maybe because apparently she also left the aisle as well.
I was going to say we probably should leave that to the latter part of the movie, because that doesn't get rid. I mean, she harbors this anger towards Puss in Boots because she said that he left him at the altar, but then it turns out that Softpaws herself also got cold feet and wasn't at the altar either, so none of them turned up.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think they just played that for laughs.
They probably played that for laughs. But the point is that the reason why she wants to look for the wishing star is that she can be able to wish for somebody that she can trust, because every person or every creature that she's ever met up with has basically betrayed her, and Puss, I'm sure felt really guilty about this, and we saw this throughout the movie, that she wants to be able to trust him again. And it's not easy at first, because they each have the goal of trying to find the wishing star, and so are Goldilocks and the three bears. You have Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. And you have Papa, Mama, and Baby, who want to be able to wish for various things. They want to wish for money, they want to wish for adventure, they want to wish for a nice place to live in, and all these kind of things. Well, Goldilocks is like kind of like leading them in, saying like, yeah, we're gonna get all that stuff, and we're gonna make all of our wishes come true. But there's a bit of a different side of Goldilocks that we will see later on. But yeah, I know that some people are going to be arguing that, this isn't consistent with the with the three bears in the Shrek movies.
Oh, well, none of it is.
I know, none of it
I'm
is.
going to say that, maybe these three bears are a different three bears, and, these are the three bears that... It's kind of confusing because, we'll talk about that at the very end, but the canons in Puss in Boots are kind of confusing when you really think about it. I always believed that, Puss in Boots obviously was a spin-off, it's its own thing that exists outside of Shrek. But, towards the end of the movie, there's some hints that it actually might be tied into Shrek somehow.
Yeah.
So, I think we'll discuss that probably, later on once we end it.
Yeah, but even with, Shrek the Third and Shrek Forever After, their characters are inconsistent, because we saw that minor cameo with Rumpelstiltskin, in which he teams up with Prince Charming alongside with a group of baddies. And then we have Rumpelstiltskin as his own main villain portrayal, and he's completely different.
I'm going to argue that, maybe this is a different three bears. You have the three bears that are just part of maybe I tell you, maybe it might be this. Maybe the Goldilocks and the three bears, maybe that might be just their ruse, or their con, basically. They're not Goldilocks and the three bears. They're people who pretend to be them. I don't know. They are scoundrels at the end of the day. You can't expect them to tell the truth. Maybe I'm not too sure.
I like to think it's not the case. I think that's actually supposed to be Goldilocks and the three bears.
They're probably, but you look at them they're a crime family, effectively.
Yeah, they're essentially a crime family.
One's like the smart one, one's the muscle, one's the bit of a dim one, and then you got but funny enough, they have the mother character as well. Which is,
you have the literal motherly character who's trying to watch over them. Then you have the grump of the Papa Bear, and then you have the dumb Baby Bear. Yeah. It kind of almost reminded me of a little bit of the Looney Tunes, a little bit, just nowhere near as abusive.
Well, they're more your mob family, effectively, the Godfather. Well, not the Godfather. I think that was a bit too upper class. But you know what I mean, the gangster movies that we see back in the day. But there's one character. Funny enough, there's one character though in the gangster movies that you really don't see all that often, because it's kind of brushed to the side, as a sympathetic character, or one who sort of somewhat watches the quote unquote morals, I guess, of the group, and that is the mom character,
yes.
The mother of it's mom, be respectful to mom,
mm-hmm.
Make sure that she's taken care of, and but in this, she's far more involved. The only other mom Bob kind of mom boss character I could probably imagine right now is probably I know this is a bit of a stretch, but do you remember Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the mother's the one who's basically been pulling the strings the entire time,
mm-hmm.
and she's there with a revolver saying, "Where's my grandson?" It's she kind of she's not that sort of demented, but she sort of reminds me of the role that she would play in the Three Bears. I would probably imagine.
And even with Shrek 2, if you remember, the fairy godmother was basically the mom boss of the entire thing, where she was basically the one who controlled all the magic in the entire kingdom. Yet at the same time, she wanted to uphold the king's end of the bargain about you have to let my son marry Princess Fiona so that he can rule far, far away. So it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where she's very sweet at first, but there's an evil side to her.
Yeah, but here's the thing about this. We've been through, Puss in Boots, we've been through Softpaws, we've been through, Perrito, and now we're here with the Three Bears. We're now going to move on to our antagonist, and so that's going to be Jack Horner.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest with you, Jack Horner's Donald Trump in this, isn't he?
Boy.
It's when he's speaking with the conscience, you easily look at this kid, this thing, and you say, yeah, they thought of Trump when they first thought of Jack Horner. I can guarantee you that. Like, he was born into privilege, had really good parents, everything like that, and he just felt like he didn't have it all. And it's like, dude, that just stinks of privilege. It really does. And so Jack Horner's whole thing in this is that he wants the wish because he wants all of magic. He just wants the magic for himself and wants nobody else to have it. And so that was his whole deal in this. And so he even has a bunch of expendable people to help him do all of that. And and also he's been collecting other magical items as well for so other people. He has them for himself and nobody else has them.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
so.
And it's kind of interesting about where does this story take place if we are going to include it in the Shrek universe? Does it take place after Shrek 2? Because as we mentioned before that, the fairy godmother was very powerful as well. So I take it that I think I even saw the wand of the fairy godmother in Jack Horner's collection. So maybe at this point this takes place after Shrek 2 because of that.
Well, I remember when the fairy godmother obviously met her demise. I mean, did the wand disappear with her too?
No, the wand was right there on the floor alongside.
Oh, well, Jack Horner took it then.
Yep,
there you go. That's the explanation.
Yeah, I guess Jack Horner just so happened to have been at the main celebration.
Oh yeah, he would be, wouldn't he? Because he's the high class, isn't he?
Yes.
So he would have been invited to everything, no doubt.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's baking all this stuff. For everybody, he's the high roller of bakery, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe he was helping with the catering, and he just so happens to have shown up during Fiona and Shrek's main ceremony. And I guess when the fairy godmother met her demise, when the magic reflected back at her, and then the wand fell down, I take it that this is going to be the opportunity for me to take this wand and add it to my collection.
I probably imagine he got kicked out of the party when someone asked him, "Do you know the Muffin Man?" Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, but it's actually interesting that they decided to choose Jack Horner as the bad guy of all things, because Jack Horner was just a very basic nursery rhyme. It's about, some kid named Jack Horner.
He's a pretty basic villain in this movie, too.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, it was little Jack Horner sits in a corner eating his Christmas pie. He gets his thumb, pulls out a plum, and he was a good boy. And then
Pinocchio upstaged him.
Yep, and Pinocchio upstaged him.
Yeah, that's such great commentary, isn't it? They all predicted that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio was going to be the winner of the Oscars, and Puss in Boots called that pretty much down the middle.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because we saw this video of the Academy Awards YouTube channel where they were able to have the directors of the movies that were nominated. You had Puss in Boots, Turning Red, Sea of Thieves, what was it? Another film that was nominated. I think it was a foreign film, and then Pinocchio. And all five of them, with the exception of obviously, the people who worked on Pinocchio. I mean, Guillermo del Toro was not there, but all those people who were nominated for films were able to draw a what if scenarios. What if your movie won the Oscar? And none of them won it, with the exception of Pinocchio.
Totally not. So, there's not really much to say about Jack Horner really as a character. He is just your generic villain. I'm gonna get the star and take over the world. And he's so oblivious to everything around him. And he's just, he's a narcissist, and he's also he's also just unaware of other people's feelings. He's a sociopath.
Yeah, and he's willing to just throw away his minions if it was nothing. Anytime that they were able to get to a point in which they have this obstacle in their way, he just uses his minions if they were nothing. And if they fell down, it's well, at least I have plenty more.
And, Pinocchio's conscience also makes an appearance in this, and he basically just calls Jack Horner an irredeemable monster. It's what took you so long? It's that part of the movie has been a meme ever since this movie has been released.
Mm-hmm.
So it's but mind you, I guess in a way, it's somewhat if I had to give a positive argument to Jack Horner, I guess it's sort of refreshing to have a typical villain, I guess, for a movie, which we haven't really seen, in Encanto is basically the villain was basically just family issues, and
welcome to generational trauma.
Exactly, yeah, and that's basically been the villain of some Disney movies, some other movies, stuff like that. So in a way, it's dare I argue, maybe it's pretty refreshing for DreamWorks to have a generic villain in all of this. Maybe.
I mean, we even talked about this on the DreamMachine episodes, that we haven't had a good villain in a while. I mean, with the bad guys, they were also really good villains, and then of course we found out who the real villain was. But again, we're not going to spoil it for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we talked about like the villain that was on Spirit Untamed, and he was just like your generic evil cowboy. And then you had Crude's A New Age, who was like the monkeys, and then you had Boss Baby Family Business.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess, Jack Horner, I guess, is, I guess for this particular movie, I guess he works as a villain, but at the same time, he will, I think, eventually somewhere down the line become pretty forgettable.
Exactly. Like, we won't remember him compared to, like, all the other villains that we've seen in other DreamWorks films.
Well, the one thing I'll definitely say in this movie, where we've been through, like, our protagonists, we've been through, like, our, I guess, our quote-unquote antagonists slash, anti-heroes, and we've also been through our villain as well. But here's the thing I'll definitely say about this. There's not one wasted character in this movie at all.
I agree.
Yeah, like, this is a movie that actually utilizes all the characters and gives them enough screen time and gives them enough breathing space to actually, be very... I love the story, like, Goldilocks and everything, because Goldilocks, feels like she's not... she loves her bare family, but she doesn't feel like she belongs with them because she is human and therefore wants to find her real family. And, but then she realizes, later on, like, in the final scene, that, her family, that this is her family, and that it does mean that, important to her, and everything like that. And you know what? That's a real tearjerker moment, isn't it? When they all finally realize that and everything like that. That this bear family sees Goldilocks so special that they will even put their lives down for her if it means that she's going to be happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I really like where Kitty Softpaws was able to discover that she didn't need the wish because she was able to find trust in both Puss and Perrito. And Perrito didn't even want it to begin with. He was just happy that he was able to help out.
I love the bit where, like, they look at the map, and obviously when they put their hands on the map and like the whole world changes, like, this really horrible hellscape, and then when Perrito changes it like turns into like sunshine and rainbows, kind of like I'm sick of making this reference, but it kind of reminds me of, like, the very sickly happy level in the the AVGN video game.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but all of that, like, it was hilarious to look at, I think.
Yeah.
By the way, a lot of creativity in this movie as well, because, like, this isn't just like, on your road kind of like thing. They go into like another dimension pretty much.
Yeah, depending on who's holding the map, it showcases on the emotions and the trials that each character has to go through. Like with Goldilocks, for example, when she held the map, she was brought into the nostalgia lane, and it's basically like the three bears were finally back at home, and they were relaxing, and they were eating the porridge and sitting down, and you have Goldilocks who's trying to tell them, no, this is a trap, don't do this, and they were just like all so fixated with the things that they left behind. And then we found out about her being an orphan who wandered into the three bears house. And then we also have with Puss in Boots, in which he is going through like all of these trials involving with like being trapped in various things. And also we get to see death again. And then we have Kitty, who her thing was about like not trusting anybody, and there was this whole glass mountain that glass ice mountain that they were trapped in. So I really like the fact that it's not just like one set location. It's just a location that changes every time somebody holds the map. I think that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. So, we get to basically the final scene, I think, at this point, and because we've been through like all the story arcs, and so we get the final fight, and it's the one thing though I think that was really cool in all of that is that Puss in Boots sees like visions of like his previous 8 lives about how reckless he was, and how much he earns for like that the whole thing again, and then Puss in Boots in that moment realizes about how reckless he actually is, and feels like he does have something to fight for now with Softpaws and with Perrito as well. And so he we have that whole thing with being chased by Death, and then finally we have the the final fight scene between Puss in Boots and Death. But then during that time, Puss in Boots tells him I'm not just fighting for myself now. I feel like I have something to fight for, and I'm going to fight for my last life. And that stops Death in his tracks, because it's like, well, you're not the person I wanted to take the life of anymore. Like you want to value this last life, so I'm not going to take it away from you, and then just walks away.
Yeah, but the fight scene that happened before then was absolutely incredible, where they were able to fight like one-on-one with each other with the size, and finally when Puss got his sword back, and he was able to overcome Death, and I thought that was really cool.
The one thing I disagree with, though, is that, in that scene, Death just kind of like walks away and just gives, Puss in Boots a warning that, he will be coming for him someday, but, I wouldn't have had him gone so quickly, I don't think. I would have, had, how I would have played it out is that Jack Horner interrupts the fight and then starts fighting Puss in Boots, and then all of a sudden, something happens and Jack Horner dies, but you don't realize it yet, and then Death, sneaks up behind him, reminds him that he's dead, and then basically drags him to hell. I think that would have been a cooler death, I think, for Jack Horner, if he was, in my opinion. But,
as opposed to, just being, sucked into, something else.
If it's just into another dimension, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe he might come back, I'm not sure. But, the way I would have had it is that, Death finally gets us, he wants a soul and he finally gets one in the end, and it's Jack Horner. I wouldn't have, had him disappear so easily, I don't think. Or even if you had him disappear, then you had the next fight with, everybody else and then Jack Horner. Jack Horner then dies, and then Death comes back and, obviously, drags him away. I think that would have been a cooler death scene, in my opinion, if Death actually managed to get a soul in the end.
Yeah, but I think that the focus was on Puss. I don't think Jack Horner was even remotely on Death's ideology of what
regardless, he died. So, the idea is that Death finally gets a soul and brings him back. So that I think that would have basically, I get, obviously you have, your argument he should have, he was a villain in this movie. I feel like if that's the idea that they were going with, I disagree with that. In my opinion, I think they should have played him off as an anti-hero. So, he gets the villain in the end, even though regardless his first target was Puss in Boots.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd be cooler as an anti-hero. I don't know,
maybe, but I think that at the end of the day, the focus between Puss and Death was actually really, really cool. I actually preferred that over with the whole Jack Horner thing.
I agree, and I think the whole thing with Puss in Boots and Death, I think was pretty good. And who knows, maybe if it gets enough traction, maybe we'll probably see that again.
I would love to see Death again. I would love to have more opportunities for Death to come in future titles, especially since what happens at the ending. So I guess let's talk about that. So at the end, basically nobody gets the wish, and everything is just back to normal. We have Puss, Perrito, and we have Kitty Softpaws together. They steal a ship, and then they ride off into their next adventure, and it just so happens to be at far, far away.
Which really, really confuses me, because obviously that's where, we were talking about the three bears before, and obviously there's the three bears in the Shrek universe, and there's the three bears also in the Puss in Boots, I guess now the Puss in Boots story is sort of going into the Shrek story. I don't know.
I guess so, considering that we know that Shrek 5 is going to be coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, how sad is that to think about? We got Shrek 5, coming out soon. We've got Toy Story 5 also coming out soon as well. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, it's actually funny about if they decided that they were going to follow up with this. It's why would they go to far, far away? Are they going to meet up with Arthur or something? Because Shrek and Fiona are back in the swamp.
Yeah, I'm guessing something is going to happen there, I guess.
I guess so. Maybe Arthur's in trouble and he needs to hire Puss to rescue far, far away from something.
Some people will disagree with me, but I still think that they should I know the Avengers is been and gone now, but I still would like to see an Avengers angle, with the DreamWorks properties where for heroes from other DreamWorks movies all come together to fight a villain. I don't know who his name's gonna fly out of my head.
Which one?
The villain of Avengers Endgame.
You're talking about Thanos.
Thanos. I can't believe I forgot about that. Thanos. Yeah, I don't know what Thanos basically would be in the DreamWorks Avengers kind of thing if they did do that. But I think Shrek 5 needs to be something huge. I think in order to for people to say, oh, it's not just Shrek 5. It's we're just going to see Shrek, Donkey, and Fiona again. We're going to see Puss in Boots. We're going to see other characters from other DreamWorks movies maybe, or see other characters from that were within Shrek but never got to be promptly put front and center maybe. But it looks like this Puss in Boots movie is teasing the idea of they're going to be in far, far away, and so I'll be interested to see where they go with that.
Yeah, I guess the thing that we need to mention was how the movie opens with the new DreamWorks introduction. So we have obviously the main mascot of the DreamWorks
going for all for example they see the Shrek characters, they see the Kung Fu Panda characters. characters.
We have the bad guys.
Bad guys.
We have Boss Baby.
Oh, why Boss Baby?
Because it makes money. And
Yeah.
we have trolls, and we also have How to Train Your Dragon. But the last thing that they introduce is Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey. And I like to think that they're teasing this, even though we know what the two movies of 2023 are going to be for DreamWorks. We do know that Chris Meledandri has been wanting to do Shrek 5 for a very long time, and I know that he's been teasing about this, saying that we're going to go back to basics with Shrek. And I think that this is a key to this, especially with how Puss in Boots: The Last Wish ended, where we get to see them in Far, Far Away. So I'm not sure how they're going to be able to pull this together in terms of like what the story is going to be about. But you know what? I'm actually just genuinely curious about how they're going to do this.
This is where you and I might part in all this, because obviously you watched this on the plane and I watched this in the theater, and I wasn't aware. Apparently, there is a post-credit scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I'm just reading here. It's going to take a while. Fans are going to, according to this, we can confirm, yes, there is going to be something in the credits, though probably not enough to make you want to stick around. When the credits are completely done rolling, Puss' voice is heard saying that laugher, oh, you're still here, and that's it. So, oh, okay then. Like, he just basically says, Antonio Banderas basically says the line, oh, you're still here, and that's the movie ended.
Oh, okay.
Really, you could have, obviously we've already got the end of the movie, it's them going so far, far away, and, I don't know, maybe people were expecting that there was going to be something more out of that.
Exactly, yeah. They're just basically poking fun of the fact that whenever that a major Marvel movie is happening, they know that there's going to be a post-credit scene of what's going to happen later on. And when we saw that they were going over to Far, Far Away, people were thinking, oh, is there going to be a post-credit scene where we're going to see Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey, or we're going to see King Arthur?
Yeah, they're all eating burgers and chips over in New York City after fighting a giant monster. Like, yeah, come on, guys. Yeah, I just think that, in my opinion, Puss in Boots, I think, overall, is far more solid and far more well put together than I think the first Puss in Boots movie is. I think we can all agree on that.
I do agree. And 2022 was a pretty good year for DreamWorks, considering that it was a bit rough for Disney, and for Pixar it was a bit of a mixed bag. With we already talked about Strange World, we talked about Turning Red and Lightyear, and DreamWorks were able to deliver two solid films that year. The Bad Guys, we said, was just a refreshing change of pace from everything that we've already seen, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was one of the best sequels from DreamWorks that we've seen. I mean, it's not like Shrek 2 or Kung Fu Panda 2 or How to Train Your Dragon 2 in terms of really, really good, but it's definitely better than, say, like Cruise a New Age or Boss Baby Family Business.
Oh, it's way better than that. Way better than that. Yeah, so I think we're at the point where we should give scores now.
We don't do scores for DreamMachine.
I think we should start doing them, though.
Okay, fine.
If we had to do them, I think...
Okay, let's just... I'm going to say for a score for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish... Okay, I'm trying to think, because if I were to do a score for the original Puss in Boots from 2011, I'll probably give it a 6. And
I think I would give it 6.5, I think. It wasn't... it had moments where, you could get emotionally involved in the characters, but at the same time, there wasn't enough of them. But there's not enough memorable moments, I think, in that. I think that's where Puss in Boots suffers. But I think there's enough to, say, this is an okay film. So 6.5, I think, will probably be for Puss in Boots.
Okay. And as for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I'm trying to remember, because we did give a score for The Bad Guys. I think you gave it an 8.5. I gave it a 9. So I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I think we said 8.75 out of 10.
Yes, we did. So I'm trying to figure out, did I like this movie better than The Bad Guys? I mean, I thought it was on par with it in some points.
There's no useless characters in this movie.
No,
there's a solid music soundtrack. The graphics in the animation look spectacular, and also there's a good lesson in it. There's good storylines in it. There's good story arcs in it. I gotta be honest with you. I'm saying 9 at the moment. I'm gonna say 9 as well. It is on par, I think, with The Bad Guys. Whereas The Bad Guys, you had
had like this great trio of, not trio, a quad, like a quintology of like great characters, and you have this mystery mixed into it with a mixture of heist and comedy. You have a bit of, like a Lupin the Third with a mixture of Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and then you have like, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, where you have like a little bit of, the Seventh Army mixed up with Zorro and various other films, and I think what they were able to pull off was great. And like I said, this this past year was a good year for DreamWorks, and yeah, I mean, like Disney was trumped. Like Strange World left a lot to be desired, and like we said, for Pixar, we had the ambition of Turning Red, but we also had the mediocrity of Lightyear.
And by the way, I just want to say this as well, like, because recently, as of this podcast, we recently came off a really horrible interview with Pete Docter, who basically said that people aren't going to the theater anymore or anything like that. I just want to remind everybody that right now, like, as of this podcast, the Super Mario Brothers movie is currently doing $1.4 billion at the box office, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, by the way, did about $484.6 million at least.
Yeah,
at the box office, and that is a worldwide total, and did extremely well in the United States, and did even better in Canada. Like, so, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, DreamWorks and Illumination and various other ones don't seem to be having a problem getting people into the theater.
No. I mean, like, DreamWorks is, again, going to be releasing their next film in a couple of days, actually, as of the making of this podcast, which is Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. And a lot of people...
And also, if that does pretty well, what's Disney's excuse then?
I don't know. And then we, of course, we already have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is already in the theaters, and that's gotten people really excited about it. And as you mentioned before, there's the Super Mario Brothers movie. There's, there's like several movies that are in the theaters that are making people really interested in going to watch it. And so, yeah, I mean, we will discuss about Elemental when that comes out for Mix. But right now, we have two movies this year. That is Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, and then, of course, Trolls 3. Getting the band back together.
You know what? I'm like, the one thing I'm really dreading about Trolls 3 is that obviously it's going to be boy bands that they're going to be focusing on, which, I mean, to be honest with you, like, who's the biggest boy band right now that, is currently on the music scene? Because I see a lot of solo artists, but I don't really see any boy bands.
I mean, if they would have released this movie 10 years ago on the hype of, like, One Direction.
And the Jonas Brothers.
I mean, well, technically the Jonas Brothers are still going, but I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, if they would have released this movie 10 years ago, then I would have been like, okay, I see where you're going with this, because boy bands are kind of making a comeback, but not much anymore. I mean, even with like, a lot of the K-pop groups, even, like BTS and various others. I mean, they're even starting to like, separate and go into like solo careers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like in regards to like K-pop bands and stuff like that, I mean, they do have their own careers. Don't get us wrong. Like, actually, in part of that, Baby Metal, I'm pretty sure Yee Metal is part of like 3 other bands, along with, Baby Metal. So I think it's not uncommon for Asian groups to also have their own careers out alongside of like doing that. I mean, obviously the bands obviously give them their bank, but also it gives them the opportunity to do like their other projects too.
Right.
So like, so I mean, like that it's different over in there. Like it's also like a lot of like some of the like the J-pop bands I hear about, like some of the girl bands. I mean, they're pretty more mercenary than they are like that. So like they do get some group of girls together who like were solo artists before all of this, and then they just group them together, call them like give them like different colors and like call them a name, and then
yeah. I mean, you have the K-pop group, which is Blackpink, and then they have a lot of J-pop groups like Shonen Knife or Puffy Amiyumi. So yeah, you have like those kind of groups, but yeah, like boy bands, like I said, I mean, I don't really hear a lot of them, and it's supposed to be like about basically Justin Timberlake's character, and he has a brother, and it's like getting the band back together and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. So, that's our review of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and I hope it's not going to be the last Puss in Boots movie. I definitely tell you that. I hope he has more lives, coming into this, and I'm interested to see where they would go with Puss in Boots if they decide to, like, let's say they decide that, this whole Far, Far Away thing is just a tease, for the fact that it's not going to be, like, anything to do with Shrek. It's going to be another Puss in Boots movie where basically he basically fights in Far, Far Away, maybe. Like,
I guess it would make a lot of sense considering that, Shrek and Fiona are in the swamp right now raising their kids. It's like they have no reason to go to far, far away. Of course, if they were
Could you imagine if they did Shrek 5 and then, like, they just, like, forget to the fact that, Shrek and Fiona had any kids and they just, like, just pick it up from, like, when Shrek and Fiona left off in Shrek 2, maybe?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Imagine if they did that. Good grief.
Oh, man. It's like, last where we left off, Shrek and Fiona were celebrating their kid's first birthday party and Shrek made a deal with Rumpelstiltskin and he imagined...
Well, if you remember back in that movie, like, Shrek basically reverted back to his nasty old self back in the first movie.
Yep.
It's like the other movies never happened.
That's basically it,
Imagine what's going to happen in Shrek 5.
I mean, like, he did kind of...
Shrek 5, amnesia on, green amnesia or something like that.
I mean, to be fair, he did kind of like wish himself back where his life was before. So he still had Fiona, he still had his kids, and he was still like the major celebrity that he always was. So if they want to pick it from that part, maybe, or maybe they're just gonna like, restart the story from the ground up. I mean, it's not.
Well, then it's not really Shrek 5, is it? It's like Shrek Reloaded or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The point is that
Shrek Re-Ogred.
Anyway, the point is that, the Puss in Boots series and the Shrek series, they actually do have a little bit of life left. So I'm actually curious to see where they're going to go from here.
If they said there was going to be a third Puss in Boots movie, I would be all for it.
Me
After
too.
what I've seen today. Like, if they do the same, not exactly the same formula, like, obviously they're going to have to do, like, derivatives from, like, the second movie, but if they continue the same, like, theory in, like, how to create a Puss in Boots movie and based it on the second movie, and they made characters who are all relevant in the story, like, there's no one there that's kind of, like, left to the side, and they all, like, were relevant to the plot and had their own story arcs, and, there are characters that you can get emotionally involved into because you know where they're coming from. Sure, Puss in Boots could be, like, a very successful franchise. Again, like, we talked about the bad guys before, obviously there's more books out there for them to make. I mean, Puss in Boots could be exactly the same thing, like, they could keep making Puss in Boots movies, and they could have, like, not only have the bad guys, not only have Shrek, but also have Puss in Boots as well on top of that as well. They'd have a number of franchise movies they can give, and they can make big bank.
Yeah, and also not to mention that we know that Kung Fu Panda 4 is going to be coming out either in 2024 or 2025.
I don't agree with Kung Fu Panda 4, though. Like, I like the idea that they left it on Kung Fu Panda 3, that Pho finally found his family, and they left it at that. I mean, obviously they're going to... We talked about before about the fact that they might be doing a Creed situation where, Po might be handing off to another Dragon Warrior, and then obviously that Dragon Warrior will then have his own Kung Fu Panda movies.
That's right.
I don't know, like, maybe that's probably what they're doing here, but, I mean, Jack Black's doing pretty good at the minute. I don't see a reason for him to retire as Poe, do you?
I mean, like, unless they continue making more Mario movies.
I mean, like, that would be interesting if Illumination, like, because Illumination and DreamWorks are owned by the same.
That's right, Universal, yeah.
Yeah, they're owned by Universal. Unless Universal turned around to Jack Black and said, "Yeah, we kind of like want you to be Bowser now because obviously we're making more money at Bowser rather than Kung Fu Panda, so we want you to hand Kung Fu Panda off to somebody else, and then obviously you can continue doing Bowser."
I mean, they did the same thing with I believe it was the Transylvania movies, in which they actually had a voice actor playing as Dracula as opposed to Adam Sandler, because I think Adam Sandler was like busy with the whole.
I might be wrong about this, but I don't think Adam Sandler's ever played himself in a sequel. You might be about in the comment section about to tell me otherwise.
He was Dracula in the second and third Hotel Transylvania movie, but for the fourth one, he was not in it, and they got a voice actor who did a perfect impression of Adam Sandler's Dracula.
I mean, I guess I can only imagine that they couldn't. Adam Sandler wasn't available at that time, so
that's what I was saying. Is like if Jack Black is going to be so busy with this Mario movie and focusing on being as Bowser instead of Poe, I'm sure that they can probably get like a Jack Black impersonator to do Kung Fu Panda 4.
No, I like Jack Black to me is Poe in my opinion. I get the feeling that if they're looking for another Dragon Warrior, I get the feeling that they are going to be bringing in somebody else, not Poe, but bringing in somebody else who's going to be the Dragon Warrior. I'm only speculating here, but if they're going to do that, that's how I would play it. Do a Creed situation where Poe finally finds his Creed, if you will, and then that Creed, Dragon Warrior basically becomes the guy. effectively, and then they do Kung Fu Panda with him. And if he does well, then it was a good call. And if it doesn't do well, bring Jack Black back as soon as possible.
Yeah. But until then, that is the end of Dream Machine. Let us know in the comments below about what your thoughts are of the, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And also let us know about if you're excited about the other movies that are going to be coming out for DreamWorks this year.
Give us your take on the speculation. Like, do you believe Shrek 5 is going to be like a continuation of the Shrek story, or is it going to be like a brand new story and it's going to reboot all the characters? Is Puss in Boots going to be involved in this? Is it going to take place in Far Far Away, or is Far Far Away going to be its own Puss in Boots sequel that's going to be Puss in Boots 3? I mean, let us know. We really want to hear your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. But until then, we will be back pretty shortly, considering that Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken is going to be coming out pretty soon. So until then, everyone, we will see you in the next one.
Ta-ta!